afternoon, good evening. Once again, my name is Shaliwa Dosumu, and this is Mirror House Concept. Um, we're still on the project titled Losing My Religion. So, as usual, I'm gonna usher in my guest so that he can introduce himself. I have on my show today, he's actually my nephew. And so just hold on for 1 second while I usher him in so he can introduce himself. Thank you.
Your girl, Shaliwa Dosumu, Mirror House Concept. Holla at your girl. Any religious background at all. Holla at your girl. Being you Christian, Muslim, Atheist, any religion. Holla at your girl. Being you black, white, any cultural or ethnicity. Holla at your girl. If you switched your religion to a different religion ever, holla at your girl. If you stop believing, holla at your girl. To share your story with the world, holla at your girl. Shaliwa Dosumu, holla at your girl. Let's talk about this Mirror House Concept. Holla at your girl. I got you. Holla at your girl.
Okay, so I just wanted to give us just a little bit background about your history concerning religion, like the church you went to as a kid, where you are now, a little bit of background concerning your religion.
Yeah, I think my religious journey has been really fluid. Like the earliest age, I remember us going to CAC, the earliest church I remember us going to.
Mm-hmm.
Then we were introduced to Celestial Church of Christ, was a white garment church in Nigeria. We had a gap in between there, and I think we did a little bit of everything. My parents was very responsive to religious people, especially when come knocking on your door. So I've been to Jehovah's Witness, Kingdom Hall, been to Mormon churches. We've done all of that, and then again, came back to Salem, which I think that was pretty much from a kid until about, I want to say I was maybe 24.
Okay.
Yeah, when I stopped going, then I started going to more of a Pentecostal church led by a Nigerian pastor here in Chicago. And then maybe, honestly, I'd probably say during the coronavirus period, because we couldn't physically go to church, I felt a lot more comfortable. I started to visit a lot of different churches virtually, and I got to start to really see and understand different things. So, and in doing that, also been listening and studying on other religions and things of that nature. Just because, when Corona happened, nothing's secure, so you just try to get as much information as possible.
Okay. Let me say, you can talk about all the churches you went to, or you can base your answer on the last one you went to, or the one you went to the longest. So
Okay.
growing up, what are the things that about church that encourage you to go there? That when your mom says let's go to church, things that you think about and you're like, oh, why not? Let me go to church.
I think, first of all, I didn't have a choice. Like, we're African. Like, I don't think my mom said, "Do you want to go?" My dad said, "Do you want to go to church?" Like you're going to church. I think the thing that, for me, it was more community,
Okay.
and more my friends. My best friends are literally were in the church, especially if I think about Stella. And I think another thing that's really underrated about Celestial Church experience is how culturally rooted it is.
Okay.
I don't know if I can't speak Yoruba all that great. I can understand it very well.
Okay.
But I don't think if I didn't have that reinforcement, just in the, for example, you have to read the hymn is in Yoruba.
Yeah.
So the sermon sometimes in Yoruba, the praise and worship. So I think that also was a big factor as well. I thought that I personally found beneficial, because then you start going to all these other churches, a lot of them led by Nigerian pastors or whomever, Ghanaian, whomever. And I see a lot of them trying to emulate Hillsong, and nothing wrong with Hillsong.
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying.
It doesn't quite move me the way the talking drums and just the way that if you think about thanks offering, it's almost like a party. It was
Yeah.
always fun. So I think those are like some of the most fondest parts of my memory from those days.
Oh, okay, nice. So let me flip it over now and say let's flip it for a minute and say, okay, what are the things that discouraged you? That when you think of going to church, you're like, oh, no, not again. I don't want to go. I don't want to be there.
I'm going to vacillate here. So I'm going to go between my early church experience and then my most recent church experience, right? Okay. So for my early church experience, honestly, I tell my friends all the time, they laugh, but I learned how to fight in church. Like some of the best fights I used to see were in church. Like
that's not a good thing.
You knew someone had beef, you knew it was going to be one of these Sundays is going down. So I didn't learn how to fight at school or in the streets. I learned how to fight in church. So
oh wow,
that's you know what I mean.
I know.
You saw it down. I would probably say with my latter church experience, I think some of the things that kind of made me draw back was there was a little bit of a disconnect. It wasn't big. It wasn't big initially.
Okay.
From what I felt church was and what I felt community was. Okay. And we could take this summer with the George Floyd and what happened with George Floyd, right? Like previously then, there was really no conversation about my entire identity.
Okay.
And how that fits into the quote unquote body of Christ, right? I felt that there was a cultural stripping away or just a separate. I couldn't be my full self. Okay. I had to be my church self here, and I had to be my
self in the community.
Exactly. And honestly, as older you get, the more you're like, everything's not gonna be for you. You're not gonna be one way, another place. Like this is what it is. You like it or leave it alone. Mm-hmm. So I felt that there was a bit of disconnect, and then also hints of intolerance. Okay. And I say that from the standpoint of course, my family background. Half my family is Muslim. And I can't, no matter what, I can't, separate that fact that my family is Muslim. And then you start hearing people make comments about Muslims. And then when you hear some of my Muslim family hear about Christians, I'm like, okay, so it's like a circular firing squad, right? Like, okay, which one of y'all going to hell? Like, because everyone is like saying, so like, what I'm saying? Exactly, this one, they don't do this one, they don't do that. So there's all this like judgment. I think one of the most that stood out for me one particular time was I used to be very, very involved, specifically in protocol. So when new pastors would come in or guest pastors, I would be, driving around town, get them to where they got to go, all sort of stuff. So we were driving to church and we were passing by a mosque. Okay. And the pastor literally cursed the mosque. And I'm like, is that necessary? Like, I'm thinking, the way I understand at least Jesus to be is love. Yeah. If it's not for you, that doesn't mean that's something you have to curse. Like, it's not by force. Like, okay, and people are going to be converted to your ways by the way you act, not necessarily because you feel like you have the right answer. And that just always stuck out for me. That like, wow, like, so you're just gonna just curse a whole church, a whole mosque? Yeah. Like those people. And the funny thing about that mosque, I see them on Fridays. I see what they do in the community. I see all those different things. A lot of stuff that the church wasn't even doing. So that just kind of made me kind of like pause a little bit. And I remember just having conversations about about Donald Trump, and he's for Christians, and everybody's so pro Donald Trump because they feel that he's for their quote unquote values. And I don't believe that. Again, I can't separate my church being and how I exist as a Black African man in the U.S. Okay. So those are kind of things that kind of made me like, I'm not sure if there's a full integration. And of course, there's no perfect church, so there's no perfect whatever. But those are things. But it's those things that are not easily glossed over for me.
No, okay. So, where do you think? Let me follow that you're responding to that question. So, where do you think you fit in the most? Is it when you're within the community with your friends, or do you think when you're within the church environment?
I think I fit in more in the community. When I say the community, it's not necessarily with my friends per se. It could be at a coffee shop. It could be where the people are. It could be like in the streets, just talking to people like with just love. Not I'm trying to make you believe a particular way, but like, hey, you're hurting. Let me put some money in your pocket, or let's talk through problems. And I feel I'm more I'm really in my bag when I'm in the community more than in a church setting per se, just because I mean there's like rules and protocols of a particular culture that's there, and either you get with the culture or you stand out like a sore thumb. And I've never really been one to like just comply for the sake of compliance. So I just feel more comfortable being and doing things, doing real things with real people, and solving real problems the best of my ability. I think there's a place for churches like that, and our churches like that. I mean, I could think of I think Trinity United Church of Christ, and a lot of the systems they set up on the south side of Chicago. You think about like churches that are in Lawndale. They have hospitals and clinics and things of that nature. So you have those type of churches. But I think for me, there's that. But I also feel like, again, is that whole cultural aspect that's missing. So I would say from my earlier foundation in church, I had like a very spiritual and cultural connection. With my latter experience with church, it's been more intellectual and more organizational church. If it makes sense.
Okay. So if I ask you today that who do you think, or what do you think added more into molding you into the man that you are today? Do you think you can say the church, or do you think you will say the community, or will you say both?
I'd say both. They like, come on, it's almost like a yin and yang. It's not really a yin and yang. It's really like a progression, right? There's a certain refinement that goes on in both aspects. So when I'm in my community, I'm talking to kids who their basic needs are not being met. Like some people are just, you can't preach or evangelize to people who are their basic needs are not being met. They don't care who you're praying to. They're hungry. Their life's about to get cut off. and they got to find a way to work. Like, so all that prayer points and tithing, okay, that's nice. And we get in our suits and we feel all good and all sort of stuff. That's great, but these are real needs. But then on the flip side, like, there's also has to be some type of orchestration from the spiritual sense. I think the church also helps to form. The question is, how do they then amplify that, maximize that?
Okay.
When I say amplify and maximize that to have real impact.
Okay.
And maybe, and I know a common retort within, and you do it, and then that's why I do. and I don't need to necessarily like get on Facebook and say, hey, I did this for this person.
Yeah.
Or I'm doing this for this person. Like sometimes, and this is one thing I do actually love about Muslim people. I think it's called I want to say it's zakat. I forgot what it's called, but almsgiving. And where they just
ladder.
Yeah. So they just give willingly of their own volition, and it's not like something that you do for the sake of bragging or getting people. Now people find out and want to do it, great, but it's not something that you just get out and do. So it's funny because I remember I was telling somebody and they were like, "Well, what do you do?" I'm like, "I don't have to tell you what I do. Like that's not like that. Who does that? Like say, oh, I do this and I do that." I'm like, that's not how it's done. Yeah, I think it's zakat. Z-A-K-A-T. I hate when I forget that. Okay. So, or give to organizations. I know a lot of churches you tithe. That's what's and there's controversy around that in and of itself. Mm-hmm. But even with the whole aspect, sometimes I want my money to be very funneled and directed to where I think it could be the most need, and sometimes that is not always aligned with where the church will be. Like if I was to go to my church and say, hey, I want you all, are y'all giving the Black Lives Matter? They would probably say no. And they probably have a little bit of a political aspect to it because how Black Lives Matter has been quote unquote vilified by conservatives. So why do I have to ask the church to take money that I'm going to give to the church so why can't I just do it myself?
Okay. I can relate with what you're saying because I see a lot of people, and not to bash anybody, not to say what they're doing is wrong. Like when they want to give, there's the camera crew, there's the whole world there watching, seeing them give. And I believe in giving. I believe in the Bible that says when you give, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Which means when you give in secret, so that you be blessed.
Well, even when you think about when he talked about people who fast and they want to look all dalty to show that they're fasting, like that, you got your reward already. You got the attention you got. That's your reward.
Yeah.
So I don't feel the need or compelled to highlight or to put on blast those activities, those charitable activities. And that charitable activity doesn't always have to be money. It can be volunteering, my time. I don't have to always do that.
Oh yeah. That's true. It doesn't have to be money all the time. It might be just be volunteering, just rendering your time. It might just be you can just see maybe a youth on the street that needs guidance, like you see it going the wrong way, and you kind of guide and monitor the person in your own way, and no matter how little, no matter how big, but not to announce it to the world. I get that. And so in other words, what you're saying is, do you think the church and right now I'm really talking about African churches, not just not the whole church, church in general, but let me narrow it down and say African churches. Do you think they need to do more of community work to get more involved within their community than
I think before they can get involved in the community, they have to understand the community they serve and the community they reside in.
Okay.
A lot of these African churches come in with a prescription without a diagnosis or a necessity. I like that. Come in, I know what's best but for the community, without asking and engaging the community effectively, without partnering with people in the community, who's been in the community, who are the organizations, the churches that have been around, where can you fit yourself in, as opposed to saying that, because we come in, I mean, and if we're being honest, a lot of African immigrants come in with this air of superiority. They don't come in with the air of superiority. I think it evolves over time, but that as if they don't really take time to really understand the history, especially if these African churches are based in the Black communities, Black American communities here, to really take time to understand the history of the Black experience in the U.S., the Black church history in the U.S., and how you now fit in this next generation or next phase. To come in and think that, because you came from Africa, that you are just more spiritual, that's ego. Yeah. And then when you see a lot of these churches, you see people come from all over the suburbs and all the parts of the city, come to the church and leave. Yeah. What do they deposit in those communities besides residing there? So in order for those churches, African churches specifically, in my personal opinion, from what I've seen, and I want to preface it that my purview could be limited. So I'm open to say, hey, might be a dope African church somewhere that's doing a lot of different things. But I can tell you, on my street, between my house and to, let's say, Drexel, I passed 2 African churches just to get there. And then like 4 churches totally, just on that one street. No, wow. So I can tell you, the church that's on my block, they have no impact. None. They come on Sunday, they take up parking spaces on the street, and then that's it. You don't see them doing anything else. So go ahead. No, so I mean, so in order for that to be a thing, they have to come in with a mission. Like the whole thing of like, I'm coming to save you. Save me from what? Right. What do you know about me? Where am I in my spiritual walk that you're just coming to save? Maybe I don't need saving. Maybe I need mentoring. Maybe I need direction. And then you come into the savior mentality of saving, and like, who are you first? Like, what's your story? And what gives you the ability, because someone somewhere ordained you as a pastor, to think that you are a pastor for me or to me? I like that. So in other words, you don't understand my story. Don't come and don't act and pretend as if you know me. Like, okay, I don't care about your story. I don't care about what made you the way you are. I just want to fix you. And the thing is, if you don't understand the root of the problem, there's no way you can help or fix the person. What qualifies you? I mean, it doesn't happen. And what part of your experience can you relate to mine? To mine. Because if we talk about growing up on the south side of Chicago, that's very different than growing up in Urgurl. Yeah, there's poverty, but it's a different type of thing. Yeah. It might not be the same type of thing. So for you to just say, because we were both poor, we grew up in a tough environment, doesn't give you, that's not enough of a qualifier, so to speak, for you to say that, yeah, like you have enough to build a relationship. And just generally speaking, who wants to, even if you're talking about just dating a romantic relationship, who wants to date someone that's quote unquote coming to fix you? Usually when people get married or have relationships, like, I get to know you, I know you're trading. We know each other, and then we decide, okay, we could build together. It's never been. I haven't seen it. Maybe there are relationships out there where people say, "Oh, I see you, woman. I'm gonna come and say and I'm gonna make you a better woman." Like, I don't know who would like respond to that, like in today's setting.
Yeah. Oh, that's actually that's true. That's really true. Another question. So I can say those are the things that would have inspired you if they had things like that, right? I think we're having a little bit of technical difficulty. Okay, so growing up, can you tell me who can you say is a was your role model? Like who?
For me, can you hear me? Hello?
I can hear you now.
Hello?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, so for me, you'd be surprised about my typical answer, but I think it was my grandmother, Elijah. So like, she was the one that when my mom was working was making.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I'll say for me it was my grandmother. She lived with us for about a year in the U.S. But during that year, it was when I was like, I think it was like maybe like 8 or 9, maybe even going on 10. I can't remember exactly.
Okay.
But she was the one who made sure we got up and read the Bible and prayed and did all those different things and understood Psalm 23 and told us different prayers. But she was Muslim. So like she would just tell us different things about God and all these different things. So she was the first. I would say the second person was Uncle Femi. May his soul rest in peace. I remember one Christmas he gave me a Bible. I was kind of pissed off about it. And then I remember like that same Bible that he gave me was the Bible that I had all throughout college. And he was far from a perfect person, perfect being, but like, you know, you don't know sometimes when you're younger, like how instrumental some of those early interactions are. I would then probably say after that, Mr. Badmus. You know Mr. Badmus.
Yes.
He was one of my first, I would say my first mentor. Really took me under his wing. You know, he had 4 kids of his own. He took all the kids. Everybody was Mr. Badmus' kid. So and he was the first person who explained God. Like you can talk about it and be in church and listen, but he's the one that it really started to sink in the way he used to teach. Yeah, I think those were my early foundations until I got to a certain point where, like, okay, and I think this is a thing for a lot of people, like, just because you're in one church or group, one church doesn't mean to stay there. And then I evolved and started going to more like campus ministries, like Impact and things of that nature. And I started to really want to understand, like, knowledge, science, and all those different things of God. And that's kind of how I evolved to the most recent church that I was a part of.
So, did you ever go to Sunday school? Did you ever have that experience?
What do you all call Sunday school? Like, what is Sunday school? Like, people say that because I remember Sunday school. No, because people say Sunday school, and I just remember Sunday school being the school for the kids. But then other people who say I go to Sunday school is more like discipleship class, like either before church starts or after church ends, where the new people come in and they have all these classes about the church and all sort of stuff. So it depends on your definition of Sunday school. But for a kid, like the kids have a thing, yeah.
Like growing up in Nigeria, we have the children's church is what we basically call Sunday school. We have so if you ever were you ever in that community where they say, okay, these are the children. Do you ever go to church where they separate the kids' church and the adults' church, so you don't mingle all together? Do you ever have that experience?
Yeah.
There, did they explain the Bible enough to you in that setting? As a kid, some people do understand. Some people go there and they actually learn. Some people are like they're forced to know how to recite the scriptures, like they teach them scriptures, and that's what they do. So it's more or less like a school where they train kids. Do you have that experience? Tell us more about this. So you understand what I was talking about Sunday school now, right?
Yeah. So I had those early experiences. I think that's where Mr. Badmus came in. Very heavily to make sure that we understood and we recited, and we just pretty much try to get it to us. But I think the whole evolution of any individual trying to learn any religion is that's like your religion 101, and then you kind of evolve from there.
Yeah.
That's when you go to like the big church or like the general assembly, and then you kind of keep going from there.
Okay. So looking back now, do you okay, no, before I ask you that, so do you still go to church now? Are you still fully functioned in the church and in any form of religion at the moment?
I haven't been in the past year.
Okay.
I think I'm in a place now where I kind of want to know God for myself. I don't want to have any prepackaged, anyone else's thoughts of God to determine how I interact with God. So I go where I want. I go where I want when I want.
Okay.
So sometimes I might, but like now with COVID, you can't really go anywhere anyway. So I might drop into the church around the corner where they have service, or look at different pastors who kind of speak to, like I said earlier, my whole being, and listen to them. They might not even be in Chicago. They might be in, some of them are in New York. You know, some of them are in Atlanta. So some of them, actually, I can even go to churches in Nigeria now.
I know, right?
I can get up early, but I can now those pastors are not that far away from me anymore due to technology.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just want to read and study. I have a lot of books on different religions. A lot of books. Of course, I got a lot of books on Christianity. I got a parallel Bible. I have all those different type of biblical tools, biblical history, all that stuff. I also have a book on the Quran and Islam. I have a book on Ifa and African spirituality. I've been reading a lot more about those different things. So I just kind of I'm in a place now where like, okay, I've gone to the aspect of as a kid, going through the spiritual, like the feeling God and feeling God's presence as an adult, and trying to understand God, understand the things of God from like the mechanics and the technical structures of Christianity. And now I just want to know God, like real relationally, like know God. And I'm not sure if that's going to necessarily be in an organized religious setting or going to be in a church setting. It could be, but I'm not sure going forward where I am now that would necessarily be the place where I can accomplish that goal.
Wow, okay. So if you look back now on some of your decisions regarding church, do you have any form of any regrets?
No.
Do you have any?
No. No, I haven't. I mean, I think these are stepping stones. I think I like to recite James 1 a lot, like count of pure joy to have gone through like trials and tribulations, because it makes you better. So, and also know that there's no church is perfect. Like, there's nothing is gonna be like, oh, this church is perfect. I think there's growth. I think there's opportunities where you evolve, and you evolve as an individual, and you determine if that's gonna be where the evolution is gonna be. But like, if you think about just human beings as naturally, we don't stay stagnant. We don't stay in one place. We need fresh water. We need fresh perspectives. Our lives evolve, and then we got to, that doesn't necessarily mean the church that you're in is always going to evolve with it. Yeah. I think for me, the turning point for me was really like 2016, the election of Donald Trump, because I really got to see a lot of people who were like conservatives and all these pastors are talking about this, that, and the third, and then see how they got like lined up behind this guy. I'm like, yeah, this doesn't jive. Something's not right here.
Okay. So if you want to advise someone who is in that crossroad, who is trying so hard to hold on to church, and at the same time saying, is there really, is this for me? Maybe I should just stay home. Like, and also to a little bit of advice, what do you think can encourage people to come back to God? What you think? And when I'm saying, I don't mean church by itself as a whole. I'm talking about church. I'm talking about the Muslims. I'm talking about Buddhists. Whatever. Like I always advise people that whatever works for you, hold on to it. So if you can advise and touch like a broad I want to say group of people, what would you like to say to them now?
I would say if you're in that crossroad, and I can honestly, like, first of all, I would say don't listen to no one else. That's what, because people going to try to convince you, but you're in that crossroad, listen to yourself. I like to use the driving analysis, right? When you're driving in the road and there's an accident or things are confusing, what do? You brake. You pause until you kind of get a clear path on what you need to do. So if you need to kind of withdraw for a little bit to then kind of formulate your own thoughts, dogmas, or whatever around whatever level of spirituality or religion you need, do that. And don't feel guilty about it, because there were people who will guilt you. Oh, Lucy Church, or you know what I'm saying? They'll do all these different things like, yo, it's okay. I mean, like, I will honestly say, to be honest, for me, like, I feel closer to God now than I did had I have in a very long time. And that wasn't within the confines of a church. And not to say that church is bad or wrong. It is not. There's definitely a place for it. But you ultimately, as an individual, have to take responsibility for your journey, your walk, your relationship with God. And if by going to a church you feel like it's pulling you away, you're getting caught up into like the routine, the rigmarole, and I got up at 11, went at 12, then that's going to be your responsibility. For me, and also you got to understand like what triggers you. So for me, knowledge, facts, history, those trigger me. So I want to understand the history of God, as far as like all of our religions, how do they come to be? What were some of the, for example, for Muslims, the hadiths, for Christianity, like what were some of these revelations that were passed on to all these different people? And then on top of that, how are they applicable now? Like, are they applicable now? Like, God never talked about, for example, like in vitro fertilization or surrogacy. They don't talk about these different things in the Bible. So how do you take things from your spiritual background to relate them to the digital age and going forward? And I think the answer to that is like, to be determined. We don't know.
Yeah, I know.
And being humble and being okay with not knowing.
I like that. And growing up as an African myself, growing up in an African community, you realize that they use a lot of, when you have like psychological issues that need therapy, that need serious psychiatric evaluation, that people that need help, you cannot solve that with spirituality. You cannot. Someone that is schizo, yeah, you can pray for the person, but there's a reason why God created doctors.
I mean, we've seen those people. We've literally seen those people. Or let's take it a step further. Like, people bring in sometimes their marriages.
Yes.
The marriage counseling to, and not to say that you shouldn't. I mean, but like, I've seen a lot of people who've gone that route and they ended terribly.
Yeah.
So like, there's a reason for those different things. I think to try to put the end all be all onus of all of society on the shoulders of a church, I think it's unfair to the body of the church itself.
Sure. Yeah.
I think that's a reasonable. I think they can definitely guide you, but to say that, like, I'm gonna solve all your problems for you,
I always say something that you cannot give me what you don't have. So if you have a broken home and you're my pastor, you cannot. There's no way you can counsel myself and my husband. There's no way you can help my marriage. You yourself have a broken home. If you can help your marriage, how can you help mine?
But even beyond that, I mean, how comfortable are people knowing that the guy in the pulpit knows all your business?
Yes, that's another thing.
Right, and then you end up being the topic or a reference in a sermon. Like, how comfortable are you with that? Like, so my friends who ask me, I'll tell them to go to a certified counselor, who could be so discreet, a third party person that's not biased, that can really help you kind of move through those different things. But yeah, I just say for those people, it's just an evolution, and it depends on where you are. Some people are born into a religion, they don't ask any questions, they just do because they're born into it. I've always been a curious person. I've been a curious kid. I always want to know. I got like a full bookshelf just on like history and the parallel Bible and all these different things. I'm like, what is this supposed to say? What does it say? Bible answer book and all these different atlases and all these different things. I want to know. I want to know that the person. I want to know when I'm being fed the truth or when I'm being fed something that might be not true. And I think a lot of tricks that a lot of pastors use when they say something that might not be biblical they say, "Oh, this is revelation knowledge." Like God spoke to me. You can't argue that.
You can't know.
I don't know. They use that. Some. I'm not saying all. I just want to make sure because I'm going to get people saying like, "Oh, you said everybody." Not everyone. I'm not saying everyone. But some use that to then manipulate people to do things.
Yes.
So,
And
yeah.
the thing is, I like the fact that I always felt like I tell people, I say, listen, the Bible says, search for the truth. In all things, it says, get knowledge and get understanding. It also says, do your search, do your research, and hold on to what is the truth. So do your own research, sort out your own salvation. So it's a good thing to have your own books to read. Anything the pastor says, you know what? Yeah, he said this. Okay, let me go back. Did the Bible really say this? And things that you don't, it's like you said, they don't have an answer for, or it's not, you cannot verify in the Bible. I say, if you have a relationship with God, that's what I do. I take it to God one by one and say, okay, one-on-one. And I pray about it. And he will, the answer will come one way or the other to me. That's my thing. That's what I do. That's the way I do it. So because we're time pressed, I want to say thank you so much, B. See, I didn't mention your name. Thank you so much. I'm so honored that when I called you, you responded and you said you'll do this, and I'm glad.
I don't think I had a choice.
No, you did not. You did not. I would have come to Chicago. And
yeah, I mean, we could be okay. I don't really think I had a choice. So
you don't have a choice. But still, you can have said, okay, Auntie, I'll do it. Well, whatever. I just say, Auntie, can we do it next year, like 2021? Oh, I'll just say thank you so much. Thank you so much. And once again, I'll let you introduce yourself because nobody can introduce you like you, right? Okay, I think the screen goes again. So I want you to introduce yourself now.
God. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so again, my name is B. I'm from Chicago. Yeah, and you can find me on, if you can find me, find me. If not,
peace out. Thank you so much, darling. And you have a wonderful day. Thank you.